As it is virtually every Sunday, there's much to discuss at the Sunday Roundtable. Joining us this morning, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Guys, you just heard Ed Markey say here, he's going to run, he's going to move forward, he's going to keep going, and, you know, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. What do you think? I
don't remember the torpedo part, but look, this could be a tough race for Ed Markey if he runs, because he could get a primary. Maybe Joe Kennedy runs against him. Charlie Baker could run against him in a general election. This could be a real race. And if that's the case, both Baker and Markey would have a tough time. Markey's got a long record. I'll let Rob talk about the 50-year record and all of that. And Charlie Baker's never had to run on his record because much of it was revealed after he left office. So 2026 could be lit, as the kids say.
I was going to remind, it's not this year, but that is interesting. 26 is when his seat's up.
Yeah. It could be Charlie Baker. It could be a Democratic primary opponent. And I think what those opponents will say about Ed Markey is his vulnerability is that come 2026, if elected to another term in the U.S. Senate, he will have been in Washington 56 years. Will be 86 at the end of his term. That's a lot to overcome. We saw Joe Biden couldn't overcome it this year.
You think Joe Kennedy's a real possibility again?
I think it's possible, right? But there are other factors there too. Besides, if you have a primary as an incumbent, you have a general election thing. Not only everything Rob said, but when you look at the whole picture, the late John Walsh was instrumental in Ed Markey getting to the Senate again and all of that. So there are a lot of factors involved, and politics never ends.
What happens in November is going to impact it too.
Well, let's move on to presidential politics then. Just a little more than a week to go. Fascist is the new political expletive in the home stretch of the race. The rhetoric is really ugly on both sides and even getting darker. But will democracy be the deciding factor for those who are still deciding? What do you think, Rob?
I think it's just one factor. I think this was a hair on fire week for the Democrats in terms of the presidential race and other races around the country. Trump seems to have some momentum in the polls. And I think democracy, yes, it's part of it, but inflation, immigration, the economy, those are the core issues. They're as much a part of the issue set, if not more, in terms of motivating the undecided.
Marianne, what do you think? Democracy?
This isn't a both sides issue. I just want to go on the record saying that. The only person who's a fascist in this race is Donald Trump. The only one using ugly language is Donald Trump, who has demeaned everybody by race, by gender. Arnold Palmer, go down the list. So I think that's important first and foremost. And abortion's driving this election. And women are already voting early in droves by 10% above men.
In several states.
And that's what democracy is. When people's rights are taken away, so is democracy, and that's what's on the ballot.
We don't have an election day, we have an election season because a million of votes have already been cast. Is that a good thing?
Well, I think it's okay. I think it's just technology advancing, especially post-COVID.
Well, it's changing.
Technology's not quite advancing because you can't vote on this thing yet.
But in terms of sure, but in terms of mail ballots, and a lot of people are concerned about there only being electronic records.
But Republicans have made a lot of efforts to make it harder to vote. So people who work multiple jobs, different shifts, and all that, they need longer time. But Republicans have gone out of their way to make it hard to vote.
Well, I don't think that's true across the country. It's not true.
Not every state.
Trump's out encouraging people to vote by mail, vote early, and he did it. And 35 million people have voted by mail. So 25% of the vote has already happened.
Here in Massachusetts,
32.
Here in Massachusetts, there is the United States Senate race, but really, it's the thing on the hot thing on the ballot are the questions.
The ballot question.
The ballot question. There's quite a bit of back and forth over the questions on Beacon Hill. There's a split among some high-ranking Democrats on ending the MCAS graduation requirement, and it's important to say that the test would still be there if it changed, but it wouldn't be a requirement. This is question 2. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley coming in favor. Governor Healey is opposed. A divide like this is unusual for Democrats. What does it say, Rob?
Well, first of all, I'm going to give credit to Governor Healey and Attorney General Campbell for coming out for no on 2. I criticized the governor a few weeks ago for not doing enough, but she's been out there lately doing it. I think she's in the right place. The Senate President, the Speaker of the House are also against it. Others are in favor. I think it's clear they're in bed with the teachers union, whether it's Senator Warren, whether it's Auditor DeZoglio. There's only one reason to be yes. It's because you're trying to curry favor with the teachers unions.
Look, this is high stakes versus high standards, and in the middle of it is an MCAS test, which everybody says is flawed. So whether it passes, which I think it will, or does not, the real problem here is the test. So no matter what the outcome is, everyone needs to get together and find a better way to measure standards and success, because it has become the vehicle by which kids in the state are educated, and that's not great.
And worth mentioning, the legislature hasn't ruled out making changes, no matter, depending on which way this goes, which is their purview.
Well, the will of the voters should always be honored, no matter what. But the implementation and the procedures to do whatever is passed, that's always been the sticking point. That's certainly in their purview. But I think you see ballot questions as a way to try to get action out of the legislature, and that's not always the best way to do it.
We're on the record. Stay with us.